Our next guest says that the growth of Parler can't be ignored, mainly because he says extremists are flocking to the platform, though he does concede that Parler is not primarily extremist. Joining us now is Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League. It's good to see you, Jonathan. And I just think it's as simple as, you know, Facebook needs monitoring, Twitter needs monitoring. If you're going to be an open platform for discussions and everything else, I don't see how you need to view this any differently than what you've already been trying to do with the other social media website. You think it's actually going to be worse here because conservatives are going there, extremists, Jonathan?
Joe, first of all, it's nice to see you, and I always appreciate the chance to chat. Look, Parler is extremely interesting, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with having platforms where conservatives or liberals, libertarians, independents, everyone has the right to free speech. The question is, Joe, do we think that everyone has if free speech equals freedom of reach? And what I would suggest is that while Parler is not an extremist platform, there are lots of prominent conservatives on the site, as you were just reporting. The reality is we have seen an extraordinary rise of white supremacists, QAnon conspiratorialists, anti-vaxxers, neo-Nazis, and other types using Parler as an outlet because they're not finding a home on places like Facebook or Twitter anymore. Now, I think those services are far from perfect. But I think what we have to ask ourselves is whether or not, and I think what Parler has to ask itself is whether it wants to be truly a public square, like its founder has talked about, or whether it wants to be a fraternity party where the loudest, most sensationalist voices are able to dominate. Because
like
what
Twitter,
we've seen,
like Twitter for the left, Jonathan.
Left, right, Joe, I got to tell you, I don't think these labels apply.
You understand what I'm saying. You understand one man's extremist is another man's. On Twitter, that's not even a public forum anymore, Jonathan. I mean, maybe you don't have the what you just described, but you've got all the unsavory elements from the other side free to go wild. On Twitter, that's not right. Look, that's the same discussion we have every time. That's a
freedom of speech, in my opinion, isn't freedom to slander.
No, I agree. I agree. But Twitter needs, it's good for the goose is good for the gander, and Twitter is let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Twitter has censorship now, basically, Jonathan. So I mean, which is worse?
What's wonderful is that there are plenty of places where one can express their opinion, whether it's on CNBC, Twitter, Parler, or Gab. I think the question we've got to wrestle with is what kind of society we want. Look, Joe, if you want to go look up Holocaust denialism, go to Parler. If you want to look up race theory, go to Parler. Go to Gab. There are plenty of places. But for those of us who are parents, for those who care about the discourse, I think what we need to make sure, whether you're a corporate advertiser worried about brand safety or you're a government regulator worried about kids' safety, that these services simply don't allow incitement to violence.
Right.
And don't allow hate unfettered.
Right.
That's what
Jonathan,
it's about.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.